Lesson 12, decimal numbers. Today we're going to review our decimal place values. So here in the picture you can see we have our decimal right here. That's our decimal point. And going to the left we have our ones place, we have our tens place, we got our hundreds place, our thousands, 10,000s, and so on. But to the right we have our tenths place, we have our hundredths place, 1,000th place, 10,000th place, 100,000th place, and millionth place. So we are going to be able to write our decimals and also be able to read them properly as well. So let's look at some sample problems. It says use words to write each number. So I would write 12 in 5 hundredths because it's 2 decimal places. So 12. And for decimal point, we always use the word and. It'd be 5 hundredths. Next one is 125 and I have 3 decimal places, so this would be thousands. And the next one, order these numbers from least to greatest. So here I have to first look at the first decimal place. Okay, and the fewer decimal places, but with the biggest tenth place, that's going to be your biggest number. Okay, so right now our biggest number is 0.5 or 5/10. So our smallest one is the one that has the 0 in it because that's 5 hundredths. So we would have 0.05 as our smallest number. Then we look at 0.41, so 41 hundredths, or 405 thousandths. 405 thousandths would be smaller than 41 hundredths. So we would put this down as 0.405 then we would have 41 hundredths, so 0.41, and then our biggest one would be 0.5. Next example, use words to write each number. So we have 11 and 12 hundredths. There's 2 decimal places. Then we have 300. 75. This would be thousandths because it's 3 decimal places. And then order these numbers from least to greatest. I already know the first one, the smallest one, has the negative. So that would be a negative 4/10. Then we look at the other numbers. 2 and 3/10, that's our biggest number. 6/10 and then half would be 5/10. So our next number would be half because that's 0.5. Then comes 0.6. And the biggest number is 2.3 or 2 3/10. Next example, write the decimal numbers as reduced fractions. So if I were to read this number 2.8, I would write it as 2 8/10. 2 8/10 I can reduce 8/10 by dividing by 2/2, which will give me 2 4/5. That would be my reduced fraction as a mixed number. 75/100, that's the same thing as saying 75 over 100. I can reduce this by dividing by 75 in the numerator and the denominator, or not 75, 25. 25 in the numerator and the denominator, and you would end up with 3/4. So 3/4 would be our reduced fraction. Express each fraction or mixed number as a decimal. Just like our previous lesson with percents, we can do the same thing by dividing the numerator and the denominator and write this as a decimal. So I'll put 3.0, put my decimal point up here. 8 cannot go into 3, so I'll put a 0 there. 8 goes into 30 3 times. 8 times 3 is 24. Subtract and you get 6. Bring down the 0. 8 goes into 60 7 times. That's 56. Subtract and you get 4. Bring down another 0, and 8 goes into 45 times. And so I would have a decimal of 375 thousandths. 2.5 would be rewritten as, we could do 2 and half is 0.5. So 2.5, this would be our decimal. Next one, write these decimal numbers as a reduced fraction. So this is 5/100. I can reduce that by dividing by 5/5, which would give us 1/20. 25 thousandths would be 25 over 1,000. And we can reduce this. We can reduce this by 5 first. So 25 divided by 5 gives us 5. 1,000 divided by 5 would give us 200. And then we can reduce this by 5 again. 5 divided by 5 5 divided by 5 gives us 1. 200 divided by 5 gives us 40. So we would have 1/40. 1 and 2 tenths, write that as a reduced fraction. That's the same thing as saying 1 and 2 tenths. I can reduce 2 tenths by dividing by 2/2, so I'll get an answer of 1 1/5. And the last one in this box, we got 1,000ths. That is reduced already. The other box, write each fraction as a decimal, so 3/5. I can easily change that to write this as tenths, because then it'll be easy for us to write our decimal. If I multiply this by 2/2, I would get 6/10, which should be the same thing as 6/10, so 0.6. 2 1/4, this is 2. 1/4 is 0.25, so 2.25. That one you can think of as 1/4 as a percent. That's 25%, so it would be 0.25 as a decimal. And then 1/200. We'll write this as a division problem. So 1 divided by 200, so I put 1.000, so 200 can't go into 100, but 200 can go into 1,000. These are all going to be zeros here. Goes into 1,000 5 times. 5 times 200 is 1,000, so my decimal will be 0.005, or 5/1000. Next examples. Convert each number to a percent by multiplying by 100% and then move the decimal point 2 places to the right. So we need to convert the decimal to a percent. So to do that, we multiply this by 100 or move it 2 places to the right. So 1, 2, so there's a 0. My decimal point is now here. So that would be 20%. 0.125 or 125 thousandths. Move it 2 places to the right and I get 12.5%. And 1 5/10, 1, 2. And so now I have 150%. And then convert the percent to decimals. You move the decimal point 2 to the left. So if I'm at 5, the decimal point is right here. 2 to the left would be 1, 2. This is where my decimal point is. So this would be 0.05. And then 225, decimal point is here. I need to move my decimal point 2 to the left. So 1, 2. So that would give us a decimal of 2.25. Convert each number to a percent again. We're going to do the same thing. This time multiply by 100 or move it 2 to the right. So 1, 2. So that would be 80%. Next one, move it 2 to the right. 1, 2. So this would be 130%. Next one, 0.875, 2 to the right. That would equal 87.5%. And 2 1,000ths, 2 to the right, would make it 0.2%. And the other one, go from percent to decimal. We move the decimal point 2 to the left. So the decimal point is here, 1, 2. So that would make it 0.02. 20%, decimal point is here, move it 2 to the left, you would make it 0.2. And then 24%, 2 to the left, 1, 2, would make that 0.24. And then 0.3%, 2 to the left, 1, 2, so that would be 0.003. Now that we'll arrange these in order from least to greatest. Again, we have some fractions, we got percentages, and we got decimals. The first thing I noticed that we have one negative. That's my smallest, so a negative 1.2. If we were to change all these to decimals, the fraction half would be 0.5. So that would be, or if you think of it as a percent, that's 50%. And 12% is smaller, so we would have 12% here. Half would be your next, and 1.2, that's the same thing as saying 120%, or 1 and 1/5. So 1.2 would be our biggest number. Then how much money is 80% of 40? 80% of 40, I can do 80 over 100 of 40. I can simplify here. I can divide 10 out of 80 and 100. I can divide 2 out of 8, and that gives me 4. 10 divided by 2 is 5. And then I can simplify the 5. Divide a 5 out and get 1. 40 divided by 5 is 8. So I would have 4 times 8, which is 32. How much money is 75% of 40? Well, I know the fraction of 75% is 3/4. So 3/4 of 40. I can simplify here, divide a 4 here, divide a 4 out of 40, and I get 10. 3 times 10 would give me $30. And then estimate the sales tax on $19.95 purchase. So 8.25% sales tax. So when we're estimating, we would say 8.25 is about 8%. So 0.08. 8% on a $19.95, we can round that to about $20. And so then we can take 0.08 times 20. 0.08 times 20 would give you roughly $1.60. If you were to put this on your calculator, you would get 1.6. But remember, this is dealing with money, so there's two decimal places, so $1.60. And the last couple problems. Arrange these in order from least to greatest. We have half, which is 0.5, which is smaller than 0.6, which is smaller than 2.3, but those are all bigger than negative 0.4. So negative 0.4 is our smallest. Then comes half, because that's 0.5. Then comes 0.6. And then our biggest number is 2.3. What length is 75% of 12 inches? 3/4 is 75%. So we have 3/4 of 12 inches. I can simplify dividing a 4 in the numerator and the denominator. And I have 3 times 3, which is 9. So what length is 75% of 12? That would be 9. If the sales tax rate is 7.5%, what is the sales tax on a $48 purchase? So I would convert 7.5% as a decimal, which would be 0.075 times $48. And so 0.075 times 48 would give you $3.60 sales tax. Then estimate for 8.25% sales tax on a 39.79% purchase. We would estimate 8.25 would be about 8%, so 0.08 times 39.79 would be about $40, so we would say about 40. 0.08 times 40, which would give you an estimate of $3.20.